We are now on patch 13.22, and here is all the best comps and how to play them in this patch. This will also be your last chance of hitting the rank that you want for set 9, since in only 2 weeks we will start on set 10. We're starting out Bilgewater with Nilah as the main carry, so here we have a few options who we want to carry the game. The main one is Nilah, and that is like the default one. But else, if we're getting a lot of Misfortune and a lot of Nautilus, we can go to 3-star these two, and they will kind of carry the game. So Misfortune just wants tons of mana items and a crit item, and Nautilus wants these classic items for shred and anti-heal and even taking away armor, and that just make Nilah and Misfortune do tons of damage. That also means that you have to put him in the right side. And are we getting even more items that Misfortune could use, we will put it on Gangplank and play for the 7th Bilgewater. So one other thing to be aware of is that we are probably not finding Gangplank early in the game, and that means we have to play something else. And even better, if we're getting an imp lane, we can just straight up go for this comp, since we can get the 7th trait active way earlier and having a huge buff before we even finding Gangplank. But before finding Gangplank, if you're not have the trait, we can just play almost whatever is tanky and fits in the comp. The classic thing would be looking at we don't have Bastion active and we can't find ourselves a strong unit that are Bastion. We could also play something like Taric. If we're finding him to 2-star, that could also be an option. Are we getting to level 9? Once again, Aatrox, Xayah is great options. If we do not have any sort of stretch, we could also have something like Heimerdinger. Do have in mind that if we're having these sorts of items, that is basically what the turn is giving us. So we will not play these 3 if we have the turn, and the other way around. Probably not prioritizing Heimerdinger and instead go for one of these 2 guys. Next up we have Noxus with Mordekaiser as the main carry. And what we're looking for is range for Mordekaiser, and then else just attack speed. So once again, rapid fire cannon is one of the best items for our carry. We will put him slightly behind the front line, and else we are just looking for tank items on Swain. And then we want to have 7 Noxus active. And as always, we do not just get these 5 cost units from the very start, and that means we are missing one. And that is also why that we are having Earth as our legend, since we can get ourselves one of the emblem. Again, making us way stronger because we can have 7 in the trait before finding Xayah. In the very late game, we will end up putting it on Aatrox, but before that, we could play something like Nasus and just let him hold the items. And then whenever we're hitting Aatrox, we could just pivot the items over, take Nasus out, and just play the full board. We are really not going for the comp where we are putting Swain and Cass and Samira to 3-star anymore, and that is mainly because when we did that, we want to have the specific augment for Swain, but that was nerfed, so we are not really going for that anymore. Just try to prioritize getting to level 7 and add in Mordekaiser and items on him, and from there just building up your win streak, and then getting to level 8 and level 9 and adding as many strong units as you can. If you're on a win streak with this comp, remember that Noxus gives us a buff whenever we are facing someone and we win. And that means, are we on a win streak, we will prioritize to get as many strong units in as possible. And a win streak is a prioritize if we can get it. Next up, we have Kaisa with Voids. Voids is once again one of the strongest comps, especially if you hit the emblem. So what you can do is to either play the Chinese version or the regular one. And the normal one is just getting to 8 Voids, and that is why Earth is a great legend. We will also look for something like Stable Evolution, but else everything else that buff of the team. As long as we're getting 8 in the trait, that's our go to play this comp. And that basically means we want to have an emblem for the traits early in the game. We want to prioritize items for Kaisa, and next up else Vel'Koz. We could also use classic items like Spark or Sunfire Cape in the early game to make these units make more damage. Else we could also prioritize to put items on Fiora. And obviously if we have the emblem, we will put it on Fiora as well, since everyone else is a Void unit. If you want to play the Chinese version where you are putting everyone to 3-star, you are probably gonna go for Lee Sin instead of Earth. I have made a full guide on that comp, so if you want to learn that one, you can watch that video instead. But else, just play this full board, 7 Void units plus Fiora. And from here, you can just add in whatever if you get to level 9. That could be Xayah, Aatrox, or Heimerdinger. One of these 3, and then you're good to go. Next up, we have Demacia Kayle. The things that you want to be aware of in this comp is that we want to go for 7 Demacias and 4 Enslayers. If we're starting out the game by having a lot of Kayle units and components for Rageblade, we can go for this comp. And the first thing we want to look for is getting Kayle to 3-star. That means we're prioritizing all the gold above 50 to hit Kayle to 3-star. And then we just want to get to level 7 as fast as possible. Then we are prioritizing to have 7 Demacias. And from here, we just want to add in as many Slayers as possible. If we get to level 9, we'll get the buff from Kayle itself, but also having the buff of both 7 Demacias and 4 Slayers. The only 2 items that we're building on Kayle is Rageblades. Since we're getting the last item from Demacia, and that will be a Radiant item. The same goes for Quinn, 2 items on her, 2 items on Fiora, 2 items on Galio, and then it just depends on what units that you want to prioritize. But you will always have a Radiant item on Kayle. If we're getting an emblem for either Demacia or Slayer, we can get these traits active at level 8, and that makes us way stronger. After prioritizing items for Kayle, we want to prioritize items for Fiora or Galio. If we can slam standard tank items for Galio without using components for Fiora, we will do that. That could be if we have extra components, such as for Sunfire Cape or Redemption, but else prioritize your components for Kayle and Fiora. The augments that we're looking for is any specific augments. It could also just be just the crest for either Slayer and Demacia, and else you just want to pick the Legend Earth so you can get one of the 2 traits up faster. Next up we have a Xayah with Vanquisher and Ionia, and the main thing is that we're getting these 2 traits fully active, so we are buffing up Xayah and giving her AD items. That could be anything like this, it could also be something like this, but do not prioritize getting attack speed on her since we are mainly focusing on getting more damage out of her. Anything else to look for is that we're putting tank items on Shen and Sets, and Rapid Fire Cannon as the whole set we are putting on Nilah. Obviously we are not having Ahri from the start, and that means we have to play another Ionia unit. We can just swap them out whenever we hit Ahri. And are we getting an emblem, we can put it on Nilah and then completely skip Ahri. We could also play something like Ashe, and if we have a lot of Ashe units in the early game, we can put the emblem on her instead, and then we can play something like Sejuani and take out Darius instead. Then we still have all the traits active that we need. We even have Freljord, which means we don't have to play Last Whisper, and we can also start putting items on Ashe. The augments that we're looking for is the specific one for either Ionia or for Vanquisher. And we should probably again go for Earth since the emblem is super good. Are we getting to level 9? We will once again play one of the strongest 5-cost units, and that will be Xayah, Aatrox, or Heimerdinger. Next up we have Challengers, and Challenger is just back on the board for sure. So one thing you can choose between is playing either 6 or 4 in Challengers. It's probably best to play 4, but are we not having Aatrox and are we not having Heimerdinger early, we can just play some of the other units instead, making us able to have 6 in the trade and not playing the 5-cost units. Then if we're hitting these 2 5-cost units, we can just pivot them and take out Samira and Aurelia and just play it like this. Get to level 7 as fast as possible and get these 2 guys active. See if you can hit them to 2-star and then just put up the levels. If we are forcing this comp, we could probably go for something like Draven. Since we having some challengers early, it can give us a huge early advantage, making us able to build some gold. And when we get to level 7 and having our last augment, we could pick Rolling for Days. And then we could just roll for these 2 units to 2-star. And then we can just start going up in levels. If we're getting ourselves an emblem, we'll put it on Aatrox, and then we could take out Heimerdinger and add in another challenger unit. Just one of these 2. And the emblem. Items that we're looking for is definitely Spear of Sojin. And then we just wanted 2 other crit items. On Fiora, we are getting ourselves a Titan and a Bloodthirster. And the last item will be someone from Demacia, since we are playing Jarvan and Quinn. And that will be like this. Next one, Shurima's. Are we getting ourselves an emblem? We will go for this comp. And the emblem will go on Jarvan. And else we are looking for a Seer, since he is the main carry. And a Seer wants attack speed items. That could also be something like Rageblade. But else just similar items for him. Noxus will hold the tank items. We could also put in something like a Sunfire Cape for anti-heal. We could also pivot in something like a Spark for reducing magic resist. And the classic one, Protector's Vow, is just great on Jarvan and K'Sante. The main thing is about this comp, if we get the emblem early, we can get up in more Shurimas earlier. And that is just without playing K'Sante. But else, as you can see, they are some of the higher cost units that we are using. And that means we want to get up in levels as fast as possible to get this board online. We don't really have any specific augments that we're looking for, so just whatever that hold us high on health, even though we are pushing the levels. That could be something like red buff. It could also be something that gives us more augments. It could also be something that gives us more components. But else Earth is probably the best one, since once again we are looking for these emblems. Are we getting to level 9? We will play something like Xayah for more CC. We could also play Heimer for CC and also giving us some of the mods for the turret, so we don't have to play Sunfire Cape, or it could just be straight up Shred instead of Spark. But that is mainly it. Last comp that we are looking at is the Piltover. Are we starting out the game and thinking we're going to play something, but are ending up hitting these 3 units or even Vi early? We are going for Piltover for sure. It is by far the best comp if we are just giving something early. So what you want to do is to hit 3 of these units, and then you want to go on a lose streak, at least 7 in a row, and that makes T-Hex get 20 stacks. And whenever he has 20 stacks, that will be around stage 3-5. Then you will do a cash out, and that means you have to win the round. Then you get tons of gold and items and stuff like that. And that will just give you a huge spike. And from there, you just want to start winning the rounds and going all the way to level 7 and just, straight up win the games. But what you can do is to play these kind of units. And let's say we are playing something like this. And that means we have to make sure that we are losing. And even if we played Ionia and we had our units like this, we could trap Y and make sure that we are losing the rounds. But else we're just playing like normally and adding in one gunner that could be Jinx. And we will also look for something like Graves. And that could be our level 5 board. From here, we're just adding in whatever. And that could be, for example, let's say Renekton. And we are giving also the tank items on Renekton and the attack speed items on Jinx. But if we're scared of winning the round, because we don't want to win rounds, we can avoid putting items on them. But are we really weak compared to the others? We can't put in these sort of items. Whenever we get to stage 3-5 and we want to win the round, we can either choose to stay level 6 and just get Jinx to 2-star and add in some items. And the same goes for the other units. Get everyone to 2-star and put in as many items as you can. The other option is that we are pushing to level 7 and then we are trying to hit Athelios, which we will put the items on. And then we also want to hit Sejuani and put the items on him. Then our board would look like more like something like this. And even better, we already hit Echo and playing the board like this. So this is probably the strongest and most reliable board that you can get. Are you in a situation where you have tons of health and are already on your 7 lose streak? You can just keep losing and getting even more stacks, since the more losses you have, the more stacks you will gain, and then you're just getting an even bigger cash out. But try not to be too greedy. It's a classic one that you are getting way too low and suddenly you're playing versus someone who is just have a really strong board for some reason, and then you lose one round and then you're just out and ending up on 7 or 8th. If we want to force this comp, I've already made a guide on it, but we could do something like Metabolic, since this gives us way more health, and also in the situation where we are hitting these 3 units naturally early and getting metabolic online, we can just do tons of stacks. If you want to see how you play this comp with metabolic and forcing it, then you can watch my full guide on that one. But else, just thanks for watching, and I'll see you in my next guide, or we see each other in set 10. Thanks for watching.